Hi everyone, so let's get improving this program now. So one thing I forgot to mention in the last video was that remember that these two, this motor direction and this motor speed, they're functions, right? So if you haven't learned about functions, you definitely do need to learn about functions. We're passing in parameters to these functions. Very important to keep that in mind. We're going to be using these a lot as we build up our Asuro code. And remember as well that these functions are stored within inside this header file, the Asuro.h file, right? So really what we're doing is we're sending FWD into this into a bit of code in this header file. Just very important to understand that. Okay, so remember, what we'll do first is let's clean up some of this comments. We've got introduction to motors. Let's put now part 2, right? So what we're going to do is we're going to get the Asuro to drive forward, then stop. That's what we're going to get the Asuro to do now. Now, since we're going to get it to stop, we don't want it to be in a while loop. So obviously, it's just going to then keep on running the while loop. Get rid of that. But let's clean up some of these comments. Just keep in mind, if you want to read more about the two functions, read page 67 for motor directions and read page 68 for motor speed, right? Cool. So remember as well that we need to call the motor direction function before motor speed. That keep the parameters. Let's just valid parameters are forward, that, brake, and free, right? And then here we've got any value from 60, which for any value from 60 to T55, and then 60 to move minimum 60. Okay. So currently this code as is now, we initialize the microcontroller, we set the status LED to green, we then set the direction of the motors to forward and get them to run at 150 speed. So let's now use we want the motors to stop after a certain period of time. Right, so if we want the motors to stop, we're going to need to use basically this exact code here, but with different parameters. Let's copy and paste it here and here, and then we're going to set the motor speeds to 0, and we're going to use the brake command here, brake. Right, cool. So now have a think about this, and then I'll answer it in 10 seconds. But what do you think would happen with this code? We turn the status LED green, set the motors to direction to forward, speed to 150. Then we set the motor direction to brake, set speed to 0. How far do you think the Asuro will travel? Remember, if you remember from the status LED thing, it will do this all instantly within less than a second, and you won't see anything. So always keep that in mind. Remember, when we're dealing with hardware, you have to think about how fast the microprocessor is executing these instructions. Incredibly fast. The one thing we need to do here is we need to use the same for loops that we've been using previously. So we're going to need to declare an I variable for the for loop. I like to declare all my variables at the top, but you don't have to. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the for loop, and we're going to use the sleep timer, the microprocessor sleep function. We're going to use it so that when we set the motor speed to 150, we're going to say do that thing, right? And don't do anything else for 3 milliseconds or 1 second, however long. Then once you've slept the microprocessor for 1 second, then brake, right? So we'll write out the code and then you'll see. So for int I is equal to 0, you should be super comfortable now writing out for loops. Sleep 216. Right, so if you remember, this bit of code here sleeps the processor for 3 milliseconds, and then this one's going to do 3 milliseconds times 1,000. So let's set this, we'll do 100 for now. Let's make it a bit more, make it 300. Cool. So now think about this code. We're setting the motor speed to 150, direction to forward, then it's going to go for 3 milliseconds times 300, which is like 900 milliseconds, right? Then once it's slept for 900 milliseconds, you have to think about what the sleep function is doing. Is it's saying to the rest of the okay, so we're driving the Asuro forward, and then the sleep processor is just basically saying don't do anything. It's not saying stop doing anything. It's saying don't do anything. It's a bit like if I was to say to you, go for a walk, and while on your walk, don't do anything. That doesn't mean stop walking. It just means walk, keep moving your feet, but don't do anything else. That's what this sleep processor, the sleep function is doing with the processor. So we're gonna just set the Asuro to forward, start driving forward, and then just go to sleep. Don't do anything else for those 900 milliseconds. And thereafter, we're going to brake over here and set motor speeds to 0. Let's see how that looks. Last thing we probably want is let's set the status LED to red, just to say that, you know, like a brake light with brakes now. We're done. And then we've got our return 0 to exit the program. That's everything done. So again, have some fun with this. Change some things. Change the amount of time that I've set here. Maybe change it to 1,000. Change it to 10. Play around with things. You know, there's so many different options available to you when you're programming this as zero. So really have fun with it. Mess about, and the more that you change stuff and flash it to your zero, the quicker you're gonna learn. So yeah, have some fun with it. And in the next video, we'll improve on this a bit more. Get the zero to do a bit more with the motors. Test out some of the other parameters as well. Cool. I'll see you in the next one. Peace.